for today's session, what we're going to be talking about is discovering and defining very intentionally who you are authentically as a leader, and then operating from that in terms of finding the power you have to make a difference in the organizations that we all work in. Okay? And what I loved about what you said this morning is that authenticity, that sense of purpose that we have, actually gives rise to our own sense of how we want to use our power to make a difference. And that's what leads to a sense of great success, but also great fulfillment, which really drives our sustained success in our careers and in our organizations. And just to get started, so my name is Hannah Anam, and I'll start off by sharing with you a little bit of a personal story. I think you've read my bio, but my personal story is actually not in my bio. So imagine that it is January of 2006. This is my story. I was coming back on a flight from Switzerland. In my career, at that point in time in my career, I was working for a Swiss company by the name of Novartis. And that year, in 2006, I had been selected as one of 10 individuals in a company of 90,000 employees that the company wanted to honor for our business building results. So I'm coming back from this wonderful, honor where all the top management of the company gets together and we celebrate the results. And I'm coming back January on a flight back from Switzerland. And I'm sitting on the plane and I'm thinking, that was great. I'm happy, obviously. It's a great honor for myself and my team. I was running our company's business down in Mexico at the time. And so I obviously felt very honored to have that award. But I started asking myself, I'm happy, but am I really happy? At this point, this was the highest pinnacle from a career perspective for me. I had spent about 15 years in my career, and I started to wonder if this was all there was. I had spent 15 years of my life climbing the corporate ladder, always feeling like I was making a difference. But what was missing for me was a sense of inner purpose. And that night, when I reached back into Mexico City, I happened to be flipping channels. I couldn't sleep. I was jet lagged. And I happened to be flipping channels on Mexican cable TV, and I came upon a documentary. And the documentary was about child prostitution and trafficking. It was about these young women and children that are trafficked between Nepal and India. And it's about the brothels in Bombay, and it was a really sad thing to watch. But the documentary actually went on to talk about this woman, this young Nepali woman who had found a way to escape her pimps and literally had created this very interesting halfway house to help others escape. And she was speaking in Nepali. I don't speak Nepali, and it was translated into Spanish. And I couldn't understand much of what she was saying. But the sense of power and purpose that I saw in her had so far eluded me. And as I was, crying, listening to these stories of these young kids, I realized that some of those tears were tears of self-pity. Because as much as I had a great life, as much as I had climbed this, corporate ladder, received all of these wonderful acknowledgments from my company, what was missing was that sense of purpose in my life. And at that point, I really felt like that's what I was looking for. It also coincided with my 40th birthday, so I think it was a little bit of a midlife crisis going on. So 4 years later, I finally mustered up the courage to leave my organization and start the company that I have now. At the time, I justified it to myself. I said, I'm 44. If I crash and burn in 2 years, I'll just go get another job. And so it was sort of like a way of sort of giving myself a little bit of a break and giving myself 2 years. And I have to say, it's been 2.5 years since then. I feel like I have really flourished. And while I'm not earning as much as I did in my corporate career, the psychic income that I get every single day from doing what I'm doing now far makes up for the stock options that I received in my corporate career. So my message today is really about finding that sense of inner purpose that makes us authentically who we are, and putting it to work every single day in the work that we're doing. You don't have to leave your organization because our purpose doesn't come from where we are. Our purpose comes from within us. So connecting to what that is, what that looks like for each one of us, and it's unique, is what's critical, and that's going to be our journey for today. How many people want to sign up for that? Okay, good. So let's get started. Does everybody have one of these? No. Even the people who are sitting on the extra overflow chairs, can we get them? They did get them? Somebody's missing one. Okay. So what can you expect in today's discussion? And by the way, whoever speaks up gets extra credit points and a better grade for the class. So, you know, we all learn from our experiences, right? So I would really like for us to make this as much sharing and storytelling as we can make it. And please interrupt me if you have questions. So what we're going to talk about today is what is a personal brand? We're going to talk about why is that really important for your career. And the way that I talk about personal branding is your core purpose is a huge part of your personal brand. We'll define brand you. You'll go through the exercise today, and we'll start to have you think about how can your sense of your personal brand, the full expression of who you are as an individual, be aligned to the work that you're doing. How can you bring that to the work that you're doing so that you're much more powerfully engaged in it? And then there's a 12-step program to authenticity that we'll talk about. Okay, so raise your hands. How many of you have a personal brand? Hi, I want to see people raise their hands high.
I'm sorry, I came late, so I might have missed you. Can you define personal brand?
Just whatever you think of a personal brand. How many of you have? So we've got 5 or 6 people, okay. All right, so a brand is what they say about you when you've left the room. So it's essentially your reputation, right? So how many people have a personal brand here? Okay, everybody has a personal brand. Now we may not know what it is, we may not have created it intentionally, but the purpose of today's workshop is for you to be able to do that, is to create it intentionally so that you can live it every single day. So let's start off by first putting your name on your little booklet, because you don't want to walk away with somebody else's personal brand and have to live up to it. And then let's answer the question for ourselves. For each one of you, right, so each one of us, why is defining brand you important to you right now? Each person has a very unique reason why you are attending this workshop today, right? So what is that, why is that important to you? Just write it down, a couple bullet points, and then I'll ask the brave ones to share. Okay, can you stand up and speak to the room?
Sure. So it's
Say your name.
Carolyn Crow. Hi, everyone. It's important to me because I have a daughter that went to college, so I thought my brand was single mom, hardworking mom for a long time. So now I'm kind of wandering back to what do I want to do, and at the same crossroads that you were talking about.
Okay, so you're talking about, for you, it's important to define the difference that you want to make and who you want to be.
Roles, different things that I want to be doing.
So you're at a crossroads. You talked about it. Perfect. Yes, please stand up and give
Hi,
your
I'm
name.
Diana Trajan. Personal brand, it's important to me because it's important to align what you think of yourself and also the perception, because perception is reality.
Yes, absolutely. So many of us have a self-perception, you know, that you know, a certain way, and others may think of us very differently. So making sure that the two are aligned or close together is great. Yes.
My name is Bonnie, and I want to leave something behind of value when people meet me.
Oh, perfect. So it's about your impact on others that you want to be able to really define and articulate. Great. Yes, can you stand up, please?
Hi, my name is Deborah Cross. It's important because I want to be known as unique.
Yeah.
I want to be a cookie cutter, not a cookie cutter. And I want to be known as having a positive impact on people. So when I leave the room, she made a difference.
Yeah, perfect. So you want to be able to define what is the unique difference that you make to other people. Perfect, fantastic. We'll keep going, and there's lots of other opportunities to. So as we do these, as I do a lot of speaking and seminars, these are the common reasons I hear from folks about why. It's about, really getting clear about our impact and the value proposition that we have, that we offer for our organizations, for ourselves, for our communities. Really being empowered to make a difference, creating a career path that is aligned to who we are, and getting more engaged and fulfilled in the work that we're doing. So let's start to define what a brand is. How many people here have a marketing background or have worked in or with marketers? Okay, so about, it looks like 40% of the room has had that. So I'll start off with kind of the basics around a brand. A brand is simply the identity, right, of a certain product or a service or a business. The way that I define the authentic brand it's your unique essence and impact in the world. It's what you were talking about, right? What is it that people remember about me when I interact with them? And so it's really defining that very clearly as we go through the exercise today. These are two powerful brands, right? Coca-Cola is a very powerful brand. Oprah is another really powerful brand. What do these two brands have in common? Just shout it out. Longevity. So they're sustained, right? They've sustained themselves for a long period of time. Perfect. Strong recognition. What else? They're global. Just shout it out.
Passionate consumers.
They have very passionate consumers. Absolutely. Their consumers are very loyal to them.
They're consistent.
They're very consistent.
Authentic.
They're very authentic. What do you mean by that, Veronica?
Well, they're just true to themselves.
They're very true to themselves. Exactly. So that's what makes great and powerful brands. I think about it as the 5 C's of what makes great brands. So the first is they really are very clear, right, about what they stand for. They communicate in a very simple and consistent manner about who they are, right? So Oprah's not off becoming a rap artist, right? And Coca-Cola is not trying to be everything to everybody. In fact, they had a major debacle, right, when they tried to launch New Coke. Do you remember that from years ago? And their consumers said, no, I want my old Coke back, right? So they communicate simply, and they are very consistent. They connect with their target. They create broad awareness. A lot of people know about them. They're global brands. And they are very consistent. So they consistently deliver on whatever promises that they make. Think about this 5 C's and keep them in the back of your head, because as each of you define your personal brand, these are the 5 things that are going to be really critical as we go forward. So when I spent a big chunk of my career, early in my career at Procter & Gamble, which is a very large branding company. You guys are all familiar with Procter & Gamble. Big brands. I used to work on Pampers and Always and a bunch of their global mega brands. And at P&G, we used to define brands in 3 manners. So the first thing was really understanding the brand's benefit, which is the value that the brand provides to its stakeholders. The second was the reason to believe. So what makes a brand unique? Why should I believe that you're going to be able to deliver this value? And the third was about brand character. So how does the brand make me feel, right? These are the 3 components of how at P&G we used to define brands. And what I've done is I've taken that and applied that to people. So your benefit is really the purpose that you have. What is your leadership purpose? What is the difference that you want to make for the stakeholders that you have? Your reason to believe is, what are your unique strengths? What helps you stand out? What is it that you already have that are gifts that help you stand out, that help you fulfill that sense of purpose? And your character are the values that are really important to you and how you want others to feel around you. Okay? So that's the framework that we're going to be going through. That's the platform that we're going to be looking at. So let's start to define purpose. And let's start to define it as a combination. The way I think about purpose, your leadership purpose is a combination of the value that you provide to others, right? It's the value that you provide externally to whoever your stakeholders are. whether that's in your organization, your family, your community, the stakeholders that are most important to you. What is the value that you provide to them? And then it's what brings you joy, right? It's you and what brings you joy. And your purpose, your leadership purpose, is the combination of those two things. It's that sweet spot right in the middle. And so my question for you is, if we just focus on external value and we don't think about what brings us joy as we define purpose, what happens? You get worn out, right? You get burned out because all you're doing is you're focused on others without any regard to yourself. And what if all you're focused on is internal joy? And you're not providing any value to somebody else. You're unbalanced, right? You might be a starving artist somewhere, really happy, but you're not creating value for yourself or others. And so it's the combination of those two things. That makes sense? Everybody with me so far? All right, so let's define that. So in your book, let's write down, what is it that your stakeholders value about you? And you can just use whatever space that you have. So think about your stakeholders, the stakeholders that are really important to you. It could be your workplace, right? It could be the people that work for you, the people you work for. What is it that they value in you, in your workplace? Just write down, a few bullet points around what that is for you. Does anybody have a question on that? And by the way, when I do this with particularly with large groups of women leaders, the question is often asked, well, what about my family? And I ask them to add their family, because your family and your community are a big part of your stakeholder group, right? So don't differentiate between career and family. A lot of what people value and get from us are surprisingly similar and aligned. So would anybody like to share an example of a stakeholder and what they value in you? Yes. Can you just stand up and speak to the group?
Hi, I'm Monica, and I feel like my background, my work background, and my experience that I bring to the table is kind of diverse, and that's what my stakeholders value.
They value the diversity of thought that you bring? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And who are your stakeholders?
I look at that as my family as well as, work stakeholders as well.
Okay. So what is it that, in terms of diversity, that they value? Let's try to get really deep into what it is. So what is it about? Is it a different way of thinking?
Different background.
So the different background brings a different perspective that allows them to make better decisions, that allows them to have a wider view. Mm-hmm. Is that what you would say? Okay, good. Anybody else like to share? Yeah, back there.
My name is Anna Golden Green, and I work for IBM. So what I'm trying to say is for both family and what I think my stakeholders value, my family versus my job. For my work, I believe it's consistency, because I deliver consistently when asked for or before.
Okay.
And there's a certain amount of passion I bring to my undertaking. So if I take it on, I'll be passionate about it throughout the whole thing.
Okay.
To see it through to the end, so I never really drop the ball.
Okay.
And I always believe in truth, no matter how difficult it is.
Mm-hmm.
So you can deliver truth without being harsh about it, even if it's a negative truth. You can say without hurting somebody's feelings.
Yeah.
And that's the part I prefer.
Yeah.
So you don't, you can tell somebody, no, that really does not look nice. But you don't have to say, oh my God, like that. So I choose the way I say it, and I choose my words. And for my family, I believe my kids like my energy, and I like to think outside the box. So I always give difference. Even my 3-year-old, I may give him choices. I may say, do you want Cheerios or do you want Cheerios with honey or something like that?
Yeah.
But I make the decision, but he thinks he's making one.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, like that. And I think my husband appreciates the way I can connect with people.
Yeah.
Because he's military and I'm totally not military.
Yeah.
So he can take me anywhere and I can adapt because I have that I'm very bouncy and bubbly, so
Okay, good.
I think that's what it is. I
Okay.
hope that's what it is.
Good. So what you talked about is, you know, what the value is that you bring is a sense of, you know, real good perseverance and consistency, right, to the work, along with a enduring passion for getting whatever you've committed to, getting it done. You also talked about what's really important, and I feel like maybe your gift is about connecting with people, and whether that is connecting at work, that you're able to tell them the truth without being harsh about it, or even connecting at home, or connecting, you know, in your husband's events and things like that, that really what's the gift there, underlying all three of the examples that you talked about, is your ability to connect with people authentically, right? Yes. Okay, perfect. So that's great. Thank you for sharing. So does everybody get a good sense of, you know, how these are some things that, you know, of value that you bring in terms of your family, in terms of, and you can see there's usually underlying themes, because who you are at work and who you are at home, it's still who you are, right? And so starting to find some common themes about what makes you successful in your home life and in your work life, try to look for those common themes. Don't try to differentiate between the two, right? Now, let's focus on joy. So what I want each of you to think about is what I call peak experiences, okay? And peak experiences are times in your life where you've had a great sense of success, but you've also felt very fulfilled in what you're doing. How many people have felt joy in their body? You know, like you feel it in your body, right? It's like you feel really good. You're it bubbles up from inside. So think about the times when you felt like that and write down 2 or 3 examples of what that is. And then we'll talk through that piece. And as you're doing that, think about what you were doing when you were experiencing those moments of great joy, and think about who you were being. What was the role that you were playing in that particular situation? And I'll share a personal story with you. This process is the process that I went through when I decided what I wanted to do when I grew up, right? And one of the things for me that I remembered as I went through and thought about in my career, what were my moments of greatest joy throughout my career, they had to do with coaching people. You know, even though I was running P&Ls and running large businesses, my moments of greatest joy was when I was sitting down one-on-one and I saw a light bulb, you know, go on in somebody's head, and all of a sudden they became bigger than who they were because they started to believe in themselves, or they got something about themselves that was important to them. And I remember thinking, you know, those are moments of greatest joy for me. It wasn't presenting to the board, you know, it wasn't any of that, but it was about, you know, making a difference one by one in people's lives in terms of how they believed in themselves. So that was just an example for me as I thought about, okay, and that led me to, well, maybe I should consider being an executive coach because I absolutely love this. You know, don't tell anybody this, but I would probably do it without getting paid for it. But it's because it brings me so much joy and it creates a lot of energy. So what are some things that you have done that you would like to share that bring you joy? Yes, Megan.
Hello, everyone. I'm Megan Connor. I also work for IBM. I'm an intern there, MBA intern. I have 2 experiences. One, I was 16. I played violin for several years. I got to play at Symphony Hall. And it was a really just out-of-body experience. fact that I was 16, getting to do what most people don't accomplish until they're well in their 30s or 40s, but you continue to play then. So it was a big, wow, I made it type thing.
Yeah,
At that age. My second is graduating from college. I graduated at 21, and it was big because my mother never finished college because she had me. So she always pushed, go get your degree. So having her there that day to see me graduate was a big thing. Another out-of-body experience. I screamed, shouted, jumped, everything I could think of, but it was just the internal joy that no one could take away from me because I did it, and I also did it for her so that she could see, her children succeed. So.
Yeah. So do you have a sense, Megan, of what's common? So as you start to put your most joyous situations, start to look at what's common. Do you get a sense of what's common between those two experiences?
My mother was there for both. She actually got to see me play at Symphony Hall, and she was also there to see me graduate. So I guess it was a big family thing, a sense of family to have someone there who watched you go to that point, and they're there to help you celebrate.
Yeah. So a sense of pride in terms of what's common. I'll share with you that, in terms of what I see in that is that you were able to accomplish and push yourself outside of the boundaries that you thought were possible, right? So it seems like, again to me, and you're the best judge of this, that pushing yourself out of your boundaries and pushing and challenging yourself to do things that perhaps you never thought were doable for you is something that brings you tremendous joy. So I would, think about that in terms of as you think about careers and this kind of thing, and it has implications, right? In terms of what implications do you see in terms of careers for that?
Well, I guess now I'm in my MBA right now, and I'll graduate with my MBA this year. So that was one thing that I never thought I would, go past college. I just start having kids and get married and, go ahead after that.
Yeah.
But that, and then working for IBM, I'm just an intern now, but I know there's a possibility that I could, move up and have that opportunity to go further in the company.
Great.
Awesome. So it's about pushing your boundaries, right? And constantly putting yourself outside of your comfort zone and really achieving it that really drives you. So from a career perspective, what that would say is you're probably somebody who wouldn't be satisfied in the same position for 30 years. And so you need to get the stimulation of keeping pushing and growing, that's really important to you. Marva?
On her mother, so both those examples, that must be your mother's greatest joy, right? I would assume, and in your example, that's what you were saying. And my examples were other people. So can you talk about her mother's greatest joy and sort of how that kind of builds her greatest joy?
Why don't you speak about your example, Marva?
Oh, no, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing, right? So what was your question?
Well, her mother's greatest, I would assume her mother's greatest joy, so you usually assume, it's just, I don't know if it's generational, but it's interesting, you're saying a personal accomplishment, but I bet your mother's greatest joy is probably exponentially higher than yours, even though yours, you probably said out-of-body experience, so it's just interesting how I think you can build. So my greatest joy would be if I was your mother or if I was your violin coach, I probably would have been coaching you for probably whatever 10 years.
Yes.
So it's just interesting how it can.
Yeah, and so what you were sharing, Marva, is a lot of us can get joy from stretching our own boundaries, right? But a lot of us can also get joy from seeing others stretch their boundaries and succeed, and helping them believe in themselves and seeing them grow. So being able to understand that, and understand that distinction for you in terms of what's important. There's no right or wrong here. There's just what's important to you, right? Because that's what drives you. That's the inner fire that really ignites you to go beyond, the everyday that you're doing in your work. Okay? So let's start to look at what's common between the value that we create for others and what brings us joy. So start to think about, if somebody wants to work through an example with me, we can do that. Start to think about what are the common areas. Does anybody have an example? Yeah, come, stand up and please.
I'm Melissa, another IBMer.
Hello, Melissa.
Crazy here. But after you said that, what's a commonality? I was like, okay, I got it between my two. So one of my biggest joys was I managed a talent show in our elementary school for 3 years. And just seeing the kids go from being terrified to get on stage at rehearsals and crying to actually performing.
Yeah.
I mean, I have goosebumps right now. It is so amazing. And then my second one is in sales, and one of my, I'm in software sales, and when we closed one of my deals last year, my executive client came to me and she gave me a big hug and she's like, we did it. You know, and just seeing her so excited that we're going to be helping her.
Yeah.
So my commonality there is helping other people help themselves and succeed, I think is the commonality.
Yeah, yeah, and what, you're part of sales?
I'm in sales.
Okay, so by the way, does that create value for your customers? How many people think that that really creates value in sales? Is when you can build the kind of bond that you're talking about with your customer, then, you know, it's trust and loyalty and all those things that we all of us who are in sales really want to go for. So how would you describe your sense of purpose? Because that's the exercise is, you know, what's my sense of leadership purpose? What's the leadership difference you want to make?
Others see that, you know, they can succeed and that they can improve their lives. And I was an industrial engineer, so it's all about efficiency and, you know, process. So helping others see that they can improve and do better.
Okay, perfect. So that's a great articulation of the difference that you want to make, you know, when you walk out of the room, that somebody should feel like you helped Melissa, right?
Yes.
Melissa helped me figure out how to succeed or meet my goals or be bigger than I thought I could be. Perfect. Does everybody get that? That connection? Does anybody else have something that, you know, is everybody able to see that for themselves? Is there an example? Somebody struggling with it? We can go through it? Okay, perfect. So, we talked about purpose, right? So, articulate your leadership purpose. Please write it down on the document. And now we're about strengths. So, each of these three people, right, that you see, are they all the same? No. They have very different strengths, right? How many people here are really clear about what your strengths are? Okay, just a few of you, right? There's a lot of data that suggests that how we win is by leveraging our strengths, not by correcting our weaknesses. But yet, if you think back to your last performance appraisal, where do you spend 80% of your time? Talking about your weaknesses and how to correct for them. So if you get nothing else from today, I will recommend to you, there's some great resources on my site. There's some free resources. If you log on under the resources tab, there are lots of self-assessments that you can do. And the one that I recommend most to my clients, there's two. One is Strengths Finders 2.0, which is a little book that you buy and you find out what your signature strengths are. And these strengths probably won't be a surprise to you, but what I want you to do is go back and really look through them and figure out how you're going to leverage them. How are you leveraging them in the work that you're doing? And how you're showing up at work. Because your strengths are what's going to help you fulfill the purpose that you have. The other one that I recommend is called Standout. And it, again, goes back, it looks at, I believe, 7 or 8 factors, and it discovers what are your standout factors. How do you really stand out in terms of who you are and how you like to leverage your leadership? So I'd recommend that. But in the meantime, write down, what are some things that you do better? What's almost effortless? Sometimes, you know what, when something is really effortless for you, we don't ever even think about it as a strength. We assume that it's effortless for everybody, right? So think about what's effortless for you, and then also think about what, we talked about these peak experiences. What strengths did you exercise during those peak experiences? Melissa, you talked about, you know, really helping others, right? Truly get from A to B. In terms of their growth or in terms of fulfilling their goals. So you probably are a great coach. And you have an ability to be able to help not just see what needs to be changed. You said you were an industrial engineer, right? Not just see what the improvement opportunity, but also guide people through how you can make that happen, how they can make that happen and help them believe in themselves. So write that down for yourselves. Who'd like to stand up and share their strengths? Okay.
I'm Debbie Purdue. I work for lawyers in business development, but I'm not a lawyer. I'm in business development, so obviously I love to connect with people. That's one of my big strengths. But I do it also in my personal life, and act as a leader for my friends. I've recently changed my life personally and done a lot of things, lost a lot of weight, started online dating, worked with a dating coach, those kinds of things. But through what I've done, just by walking the talk, my friends have come along with me. So that has been one of my greatest joys recently. And one of my strengths.
So it's about connecting with people.
It's connecting with people,
but also leading them, right?
And I never realized that I was doing that for my inner circle.
Right, and what I'm hearing you say though is it's more than just leading them, it's really inspiring them.
Inspiring them, right. And you know, doing things, and then the next thing I know, I've got 4 or 5 people coming along trying to do some of the same thing.
But you're also walking the talk, right? You're inspiring them through your actions, not just your words.
That's right. That's right. And I do that at work too. So when I'm not a lawyer, I know very little about the law, but I know about connecting with people and asking people what matters to them. What's their points of pain? What are their points of pain? What their hot buttons are?
Great. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Who else would like to share an area of strength? Come on, we all have strengths. Okay, Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Stevens with Print Pack, and one of my strengths is enabling others. I am, Print Pack is a mid-size manufacturing company, and I'm the global leader of our women's network. So I try to enable others. I'm excited that there's 10 other women here from Print Pack, some of whom have never experienced something like this. So
awesome.
That's one example of what I've done. And I've also connected the leadership, enabling, and execution works on the career side and also on the family side.
Yeah. So one of the things I actually have worked with Amy and done some work with Print Pack in terms of getting their women's strategy going. And one of the things that, Amy, you don't probably see about yourself, but I see in you is you're just persistent. and so and you do need to be in this role. So what I would ask is, when we're all done here today, I'd ask you to go back and share the document that you've created with somebody who knows you well at home and people who know you well at work, because there are some things that you probably don't realize about yourself. I call them the other blind spot, because usually blind spots are things that are negative about us, but for women in particular, we don't recognize all of our strengths. And so just take some time to really connect with people who know you well and have them tell you what are some areas of strength, and do the same for them, so that we can all, as a community, learn about our strengths and learn how to leverage them in the work that we're doing. So the last part is really about defining character, and it's about understanding what your core values are. So again, each one of those individuals is very different. Very successful, but very different in terms of their core values. So take some time to just write down for yourself, what are some things that you're unwilling to compromise on? What are some core values that you have from how you've grown up that you're not willing to compromise on? Somebody like to share a sense of what their core values are? Yes, please stand up.
Hello, my name is Michelle Hewitt, and I work for Southern Company. And my core values really is just to treat people with respect. That is one thing that I'm unwilling to compromise on, regardless of how people treat me. I've always been raised to still treat others with some level of respect.
Okay, perfect. Treating people with respect. Okay. So the next thing I'd like for you to do is think about, how do you want people to feel around you? Not about you, around you. I had an old boss who used to say, the mark of a great leader is how people feel about themselves when they interact with them. Not about that leader, but about themselves. So how do you want people to feel around you? And who'd like to share? Yes, Lynn.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Lynn, and I work for AT&T. And
I would love for people to feel comfortable, safe, worthy, and happy.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Lynn. So write that down for yourself. And, you know, the goal is for you to eventually, you know, make this something that you live every day, right? You put it in the mirror in the morning, the bathroom, when you're brushing your teeth, that these are the reminders of who you are and what inspires you to be who you are every single day. So this is my brand. I wanted to share it with you. I'd encourage you to take this and take this format and write down for yourself what your brand is. You've come up with it. We've talked about a sense of purpose and strengths and character. And for me, my brand is about really empowering women to live their calling, really discover what it is, that the purpose that they're here for in their leadership, to really live it every day in the work that they're doing, in their workplaces, in their communities, and to really be able to impact their world. Transformational leadership is about that. And there's a lot of information and a lot of data that says that, you know, of the 4 leadership behaviors of transformational leaders, that women in particular tend to exhibit 3 behaviors more often than men do. And so it's really important, you know, we're needed to have the self-confidence in ourselves, to transform our organizations, to transform our communities. We're very important. So for you to discover what that is within you is really important. So my purpose is really helping the leaders engage in their strengths, their purpose, to transform themselves and to transform their organizations. The book that I'm writing about is about authentic and purposeful leadership. And please, you know, follow my blog because I'm going to be starting to put a lot of good, you know, content out there about what I'm writing. My strengths, so as I looked back again to my experience, I've always had a really entrepreneurial spirit. You know, a lot of the assignments that so look back at your history, right? A lot of these assignments that I was getting in my work, unbeknownst to me until I actually sort of connected the dots, were about, you know, starting something up or turning around a tough situation. I was never the person that they called on to manage a steady state business because I was just that kind of person. So sometimes people see stuff about you that you don't see about yourself. I've lived or worked in 7 countries around the world, so I bring a very global view. I have a great passion. I was in the C-suite, so I'm able to bring that perspective and be able to really connect with the women who either want to get there or are there. And so that helps me in terms of what I'm doing. And for me, from a character perspective, the areas that are really important are authenticity and accountability, and for us to feel fully empowered in being who we are and taking accountability for our actions. And trustworthiness is really important to me. So that's me, but I wanted to share with you, here is a client who's a consultant with Deloitte, and she has her own sense of purpose, which is very distinct and unique. For her, she's a leader with a passion to impact by connecting people, ideas, and execution. That, you know, what she's great at is making some of these connections. She's great at building relationships, and that's really what helps her, you know, make connections within the organization and be able to impact and have the influence that she wants to have in the organization. Here's an example of a C-level marketing executive with J&J, and she was really struggling because J&J is a company that likes to promote folks into the GM track, people that they consider high potential. They want to have them managing P&Ls and being general managers, and she was resisting that. And when we worked through this branding exercise, she got it, because what she is really about is she is about big ideas from a marketing perspective. She is really about transforming brands and organizations with the power of big ideas. You know, running P&Ls and managing execution was something that would be tedious and boring to her. And so as she started to dig into that sense of purpose and what her strengths were, she started to share that with her organization. She started to create a career path that felt much more authentic for her. And for an organization, that's great because she's much more engaged in the work that she's doing and much more excited about it. Here's a CEO of a private equity company, and as she defined her purpose and her brand, it's about enabling teams to be able to see the potential in themselves. She's always somebody who sees potential, whether it's in businesses or in people. And for her, what was really exciting about her peak experiences and the value that she created for organizations is being able to see the potential. Most PE companies, right, most private equity companies are all about cost cutting. And so what she got from this is she can't be going after jobs that are about efficiency and cost cutting. What she's got to be going after are jobs that are about growth and seeing potential in growing businesses. So let's do, in branding, we used to have, after we worked on a brand's positioning statement, we used to have what we call a brand equity check, which is, you know, as you look at your own brand that you've created, your sense of purpose, your strengths, your character, how you want others to feel around you, is this something that inspires you? So if it doesn't inspire you, we're not done yet, right? So how many people, for what you've created, and you know, it's going to be 80 for 20 at this point, right? And frankly, it's always 80 for 20 because we're always evolving, right? And growing, and so does our brand. Our brand evolves and grows. So how many people feel like they're inspired by what they've created for themselves here? What about the rest of you? Not inspired, huh? Anybody like to share? So, I mean, I'd like to work through a problem. If somebody's not inspired, then there's something missing. Perhaps you haven't connected with that sense of joy that you really wanted, that you really want. You know, what creates joy or energy for you? So anybody like to share? Yeah.
I'll try.
Debbie?
My name's Debbie Teal, and I'm struggling because I'm a realist. And leaving today, I'm so empowered and inspired by all these conferences I've attended for so many years that I love them, and I come back and I hear wonderful speakers. But I'm not as action-oriented as I'd like to be, and I don't hold myself to accountability, I suppose, and I'm back to work realism again tomorrow.
Okay. So good. I'm really glad you brought that up, Debbie, right? How many people, you know, you're going to go back to 500 emails tomorrow, and it's going to be business as usual, right? So who's going to make that difference, whether it's business as usual or not? Who? Okay. So Debbie, you are. Huh?
Maybe we can have buddies or pals.
So what a great idea. I want each of you to identify one person in the room that is going to be your accountability partner, that's going to make sure that you follow through on some of the homework that I'm going to give you from today. How many people are up for that? Finding an accountability partner? Yes? Okay. So I'm glad, thank you for bringing that up, Debbie, and being the brave one to say, we've got 500 emails, how am I going to put all this into action? But it doesn't require extra time, does it? Does it require extra time from your calendar? Melissa, does it require extra time for you to now be very clear about, here's my purpose, and by gosh, when I walk out of the room, here's how people are going to feel about me? No, right? It doesn't require extra time. All it requires is clarity. So do the work. Find an accountability partner. Find somebody next to you, and use that relationship to help you get clarity. The second piece is it differentiated? So is the brand that you've created for yourself, is it different? Is it unique? How many people that what you've created is unique and different? It's the third piece is, can you deliver it? Is this something that you feel like you can deliver on an ongoing basis? You know, we're not trying to pick somebody else's strengths. We're not trying to pick somebody else's, you know, sense of purpose. Is this something that you can deliver every day? And then the fourth and most important, one of the most important pieces is, you know, will it help you meet your goals? So whatever your goals are, will it help you meet your goals? Those are the 4 key points to keep track of. And anytime you feel like you're falling off the bandwagon, come back and start to look at these goals. Start to think about, you know, what is your desired organization and career path? And, you know, for Melissa, you know, you shared that, gosh, I love connecting with people. I'm in sales. It seems like you're in a really good place of fit, right? So if there are folks here who feel like there's not a good fit, I want you to start to identify what is the desired right fit. In fact, there is a place on my blog where I talk about finding a career path that fits like Cinderella's shoes. Find something that is right for you. Most organizations traditionally have had very fixed career paths, but more and more, the enlightened organizations are starting to have conversations with people about a career path that's right for them. So start to think about that. Start to think about, how does your personal brand impact the career path that you have? What does that look like? Are there, does somebody have an example of their personal brand and a fit that they have in terms of their career pathing? Yeah.
Well, I work for IBM as well, and I started out in sales. And
Talk to her.
Well, I work for IBM, and I started out in sales, and in a sales organization, it just kind of feels like either you're sales, and then maybe you move into a senior sales role, and then maybe you move into maybe a manager role or a track. And maybe you don't want to be a manager, but you're still, have the sales background experience, maybe even an entrepreneurial spirit about yourself. So it makes it hard to figure out what career path to take based on, I like sales, I like connecting with customers, but I don't necessarily want to be a manager to where I may be managing P&L and I'm, in spreadsheet jail all the time and that type of deal has more of an impact. So, I don't think.
So where is the impact that you'd like to have?
Just to affect change in how we maybe sell to our customers on a grander scale.
Okay.
And not necessarily, hey, you have this sales background and you're great at this, so we want to kind of push you down this road versus, having a bigger impact.
Yes.
And not necessarily managing, P&L and so on and so forth.
Okay, so the impact that you want to have is in identifying new ways of selling, right? And not necessarily just managing your own territory, but having a broader impact. And so what you bring is, you were talking about, I bring a new and diverse way of thinking, right? You were talking earlier in terms of what value you create. So it would seem to me that you would be great in a role that was about architecting a different vision, right? In terms of how your go-to-market strategy for different types of businesses and sales organizations. So can you use this exercise to share more succinctly with your management team about the role where you will have the greatest contribution, where you will make your greatest contribution to the organization? And perhaps some of the strengths work and the standout assessment results can help you create a conversation with your leadership team to say, this is where I would really like to take my career. How many people here feel like organizations today are starting to get more flexible in having those kinds of dialogues? Do you feel like that? And I see some people saying, no, that's not always the case. So what can we be doing to help make that happen? Right? Because when it's an organization, you don't know who to assign that to. Like, I don't know who's the person I should put that. So what can each of us be doing to make a different reality?
I'll give her my card. I think that's the biggest thing I did. Sun Charles, I'm from Marva from IBM, and I'm in an industry role for Smarter Planet, which is a very broad thinking entrepreneur organization. And IBM is a huge company. Sun is a huge company. Southern Company is a huge company with multiple locations. And I think we don't know what everyone else is doing in the company. So I would say any opportunity you have to meet other people in different parts of the company, and it probably is going to be external. It's not going to be some internal meeting that, some people have women's affinity groups, but I think it's more that to reach out in the community, look at your universities, look at Hannah's website, you can meet other people and get new ideas.
Yes, absolutely, right? So one thing is to talk with your organization and your leader. Certainly you don't want them to be surprised. You want to be able to help them understand what your desired career path is. But if that's not working, then start to network. Even within IBM, I mean, it's such a large organization, right? And Marva, get Marva's card. And she sounds like she's in a role that would be great from a networking perspective. So get out and network. You know, whenever you're at these conferences, we tend to hang out with our friends, right? Because that helps us feel safe and all that kind of good stuff. I am the biggest introvert, by the way, that you will find on the Myers-Briggs. So, so the question then becomes, you know, how do you leverage these opportunities? Well, first thing to do is get really clear about what you want. And then anybody that you talk to, tell them exactly, look, here's who I am. Share your brand. I am passionate about creating new ways of thinking in organizations. That's what I heard you say, bringing a different perspective that creates a different vision for what an organization can do. You know, I'm looking for opportunities that will help me do that. Right? So many of us as women feel like we can't. How many people here have trouble promoting themselves? You know, self-promotion is kind of a big thing, right? So the way that I talk about it is to reframe it. Don't talk about it as promoting yourself. It's about sharing yourself. We women do a really good job of sharing ourselves, right? We share our personal stories. We share about what we're passionate about. We share about what is the difference we want to make. And the difference you want to make is about helping organizations think differently. That makes sense to you? Okay. And so that's kind of the brand you at work. The next piece is to start to market it, right? To start to market your brand. So write down your 60-second elevator pitch about your brand. Just write it down. As you start getting comfortable writing this down, really starting to think about, and the question I want you to answer is, I'm passionate about X, whatever that X is for you. The difference that I want to make is Y. That's you marketing yourself. That makes sense? So what are you passionate about, and what's the difference that you want to make? Those are the two questions. And does anybody like to share? Would anybody like to share what they're passionate about and what's the difference they want to make? Yes. The lady in the back. Stand up.
I don't want to keep talking, but I have a question thing to pose, right? So I absolutely love my job at IBM. I do. It's in business controls, but it's very, it keeps me there and busy.
Yeah.
So because I have so much energy and I cannot do it in my job that I love, I decided to do something in my personal that I'm also passionate about, and that's women and exercising,
Okay.
youth and teen. So I became a certified personal trainer.
Okay, perfect.
So early mornings, I do with my ladies like 6 o'clock, and in evenings, I do with my ladies again at about 6:37.
Okay.
So where I am happy and get the bills paid in the middle, which is IBM, which I love, but I cannot be as bubbly and whatever as I would like to be. I take that out in the mornings and in the evenings. And I'm wondering, since I'm only one Anna, if I'm stressing myself, even if I'm happy as can be now, I'm not sure if when the weekend comes and it's time for my family and stuff, and I do give them a lot of time because everything is done at home, whether I have enough time for me, like my brand me, stuff with me, but I give off so much, whether I have enough. And I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing. I really don't know right now, honestly, because I'm so happy.
It's the question to ask. The question to ask is, are you happy, and are you energized by where you are? Because if you're not, then there's something wrong, and if you are, then don't worry about it. You're overthinking it.
Okay. So services, and I'm business controls. That means audit and focus and all of that, right? So that takes away from that part of me that's consistent.
So one thing I would really ask you to think about, because it seems like a big part of your personal brand is connecting with others. Yes. And energizing others, right? And helping them believe in themselves. And so you're not probably doing much of that in audit and controls. You probably don't want them believing in themselves too much. So the question I would ask you to consider is, if you see this part of your job as just paying the bills, then you're likely not making as much of an impact to the organization. You would be much more valuable to them somewhere else. and to start to think about where is that somewhere else. Get Marva's card and start to think about where is that somewhere else, because you're a person who's energized by people and, by connecting with people.
It was sales, but I like to see the difference in the business impact that my organization has to the business. That's like a woo, but it's not like a woo, it's a woo.
Okay, so you want to look for the woo. Okay, great. Yes. Oh, whoa. Can we do the role play offline? I just want to keep continuing our piece. Okay, but can we do that offline? We need to complete this exercise, and maybe you guys can be accountability partners. How about that? Okay. I apologize for having to shut you guys down, but we need to get through content, and I really want a couple people to talk about what it is, their 60-second elevator pitch. So who's ready to just sort of say, what's the difference? What are you passionate about, and what's the difference you want to make? Come on, practice it. Then you'll practice it everywhere in the conference. Who wants to do that? I'm going to call on somebody if nobody stands up. You look like you're pretty spunky.
Oh, okay.
Since you like to push your boundaries anyway, Megan.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know about the 60-second. It may be like 10 seconds.
Okay, give me the 10-second version. Say, hello, I'm Megan.
Hello, everyone. I'm Megan. I guess my pitch is that I'm passionate about helping other people. I'm always willing to learn. I kind of like to challenge myself and see what else can I do to help myself as well as the other people around me. I probably care a little bit too much at times because I'm somewhat of a perfectionist, just a little. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay, that's good. So what's the difference you want to make for others?
The difference I want to make for others, I guess, to know that they have, an ally. And what I mean by that is a lot of times when you go to, your job, when you go at home, you don't have a buddy who you can just say, you see that? Or, can you help me with this? I like to kind of be that person.
Perfect.
I kind of talk to a lot of people randomly, and people kind of stare at me like, what are you doing? But, that's how friendships kind of mend and been. So, and I'm still young, so I kind of like to get, either people older, younger, whichever, to, have someone there to be with.
Okay, so perfect. See, that's not that hard.
It was.
But you did it. But you did it. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so now, practice your pitch today. You have a wonderful opportunity to introduce yourself to lots of people and practice it. And then the next piece is, so who do you talk to, right? How many people here have at least one mentor, right? Those of you who didn't raise your hand don't have a mentor? Find a mentor. That's homework number 1. Find somebody who you can talk to, that you can get advice from, who can be your ally. Actually, go talk to Megan. She'd be happy to do that. So I want you to take the time to write down some names of people that are mentors for you, are sponsors for you. By the way, does everybody understand the difference between mentors and sponsors? Yes, that's been explained. So mentors are people who will give you great advice, right? If you go to them, the best analogy that I've heard is they will shine a light on the path that you ought to be taking, right? So you'll go to them, I'm at a crossroads, give me some advice, and they'll help you, they'll give you perspective. A sponsor is somebody who shines a light on you. So shining the light on the path versus shining the light on you. Shining the light on you means a sponsor is somebody who has power, influence in the organization, is willing to use that power and influence to move you ahead in the organization. So they're the people who are willing to stick their necks out and stick their reputations on the line to get you promoted before you thought you were ready, anybody else thought you were ready. How many people here feel like they have some sponsors in their organizations? Great. That's wonderful. For those who don't, there's a lot of great resources on my site about sponsorship and how to go about getting sponsors in organizations. How to make sure that you are sponsor ready in terms of what you need to be doing. Okay? So then the third piece is about marketing brand you is, in what context? How often do you market yourself? Does anybody have thoughts about that? How often should we be marketing ourselves? All the time, all the time. What does that mean, all the time?
Just being intentional, being aware.
Being
Because
aware.
there are always different opportunities, whether it's in work or at home or kids' schools or things like that.
Right. It's always about you sharing, who you are, what your sense of purpose is, and what's the difference that you want to make. Right? It's not promoting or marketing yourself, it's about sharing yourself. That's how I would think about it. You do it all the time, but especially important when you're talking about new assignments and projects. Does everybody here have a 6-month review process that their organization goes through? So definitely make sure that for people that work for you, that you have those conversations with them. What's the difference that they want to make? What's the difference that they're inspired to make in their organization? What is it that, how can you help them align, right? We may not be able to influence as much 3 levels up in the organization, hopefully we are, but we can certainly influence down. So we can start to create the culture where we are, within the degrees of freedom that we have where we are. So that's the first piece. The second piece is in objective setting, right? So each year, does everybody get a set of objectives that they have to accomplish in the year? So start to frame your objectives and negotiate your objectives in the context of the difference that you want to make, right? So we talked about, I keep picking on you, Melissa, but we talked about you and the impact that you want to have about, really, really helping people meet their goals. So the more time that you can spend in that area, the better. And we were talking about the lady who is in audit and controls, and what you're really energized by is in terms of, connecting with people and energizing people. That's what I see you doing. And so, how do you frame up your objectives in that context? How do you take the role that you're in and succeed in it uniquely because of who you are? You're going to do it differently than somebody else, right? So getting that really clear. And then career or feedback sessions, invite feedback. Make sure that you take the time to do that. So here's the 12-step program. You want to understand your current brand. So homework number 1 is to share this with people that know you well, right? So make sure that you understand it through your 360 feedback, and make sure that there is not a wide gap between your perception of yourself and others' perception of you. That's the first piece. Then we already did this work, right? We created a desired brand you. We started to articulate purpose. And if you want to go back, there's stuff on my blog about reading about each one of these areas: strengths, purpose, character. I've got a whole post in there about marketing brand you. Proactively align the work that you're doing with your brand. Seek sponsors and a personal board of directors who will help support brand you. So a personal board of directors are people that you can go to for advice. So make sure there's some content on my site about creating a personal board of directors. So you're the CEO of your life, and the key is to find people around you who are aligned in helping you be successful, and do the same for other people around you. Proactively expressing who you are in terms of your community. How many people here have a really good online presence? How many people here have a strong LinkedIn profile? Okay, so homework number 2 is go get yourself a really strong LinkedIn profile. Your LinkedIn, from a professional perspective, should reflect your personal brand, right? It should reflect the difference that you're here to make, not just your job titles and all that. There's a summary in LinkedIn that talks about who you are. Use that summary to reflect who you are, what you're passionate about, what is the difference that you want to make. A lot of folks, when you want to connect with them, when you want to network with them, go back and look at your LinkedIn profile. So more than anything else, it's your professional presence out in cyberspace. Make sure you use it well to express the whole of who you are. So number 11 is really good. It's about decluttering. How do we, if we're going to start to really embody in our work and in our communities who we really are, then we have to declutter things that, it's sort of spring cleaning, right? You got to get rid of all the stuff that is not you, all the activities. I have a really good post that's gotten a lot of social media attention. It's about how to say no. You know, that's a big one, right? How many people here feel like they're really good at saying no? Okay, about 4. There's, you know, I think a lot of our gender roles, right? We don't feel very powerful when we say no because we're not being nice. And so the post really talks about how to say no with power and with grace, because you can't just say it with power. You do have to say it with power, but you also, as women, I think we want to say it with grace. And so how do you do that is important. And then the final piece is about making sure that you do take time for personal self-reflection, that you take time for yourself. I don't know how often that is for you, but take time to really reflect back to these exercises and these questions. I'd say at least once a year. Maybe you do it with your performance review cycle. I usually do it in my December break, and I reassess the year, and I look at my own personal priorities and my work priorities, and I look at what worked, what didn't work. Where are the 20% of time that I spent that generated 80% of the results? And decluttering all the stuff that we spend time on that don't make a difference for us. So make sure that you put it on your calendar to create some personal time to do this assessment, because we change and we discover new things about ourselves. And so taking the time to do that becomes really relevant. So here's what I'm going to offer. For those of you who would like to subscribe to my blog, what I'm offering is a chance to win a free coaching session with me. I also interact a lot with people on my blog, so if you have personal questions and even questions coming out, please contact me through my blog. I'm happy to stay connected, particularly if you have challenges, because for me it really helps me develop the content for my blog to address some of the challenges that I see that are coming from the people that are reading my blog. And then this is one of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs. It's from his Stanford commencement speech. How many people have seen that? So if you haven't, go onto YouTube and find his speech, because I think it's really profound. And what he reminds us is that our time is limited, and that it's really important for us to live our own lives and be authentic to who we are and fully express who we are. Not just in our personal lives, not just in our home lives, not just in our community lives, but also in our work lives. One of my favorite quotes is by the poet Khalil Gibran, and he says, "Work is love made visible." And for me, that really stuck with me, because if we do our work with love, it creates enormous benefit for the people around us, for our organizations. And we can only do that when we fully express who we are. So that's my message. I want to thank you for all the wonderful participation that I got, and for sharing yourselves. So thank you very much.